Have you noticed how we live with the feeling that happiness is always just a little further ahead? When I earn more, when I have that thing, when I solve that problem. And when we finally get there, the mind invents a new after. It's like running after a horizon that never lets itself be reached. The Stoics look at this game and basically say, you're looking in the wrong place. For the Stoics, happiness is not luck, a good emotion, or a comfortable life. It's not a prize for those who were born with the right privileges, nor a never-ending sequence of light and pleasant days. From their point of view, someone can have a life full of comfort and on the inside still be insecure, needy, dependent on other people's approval. That's not happiness, it's just anesthesia. If your peace depends on external circumstances, it's always at risk. That's why they use another word, eudaimonia. It's more than being happy. It's something like the blossoming of the soul, the good life in a deep sense, the full life of a human being who is functioning as they should. Just as we say a plant is doing well when it grows strong roots and blossoms, a Stoic would say a person is doing well when their mind, character and actions are aligned with what is highest in them. And what is this highest part? It's not impulse, it's not vanity, it's not fear. For them, it is our capacity to think clearly and act with integrity. That's why eudaimonia has a direct and demanding definition. To be happy is to live according to reason and virtue. Reason here doesn't mean turning into stone or a machine without feelings. It means seeing reality without so much self-deception, without turning everything into drama or catastrophe. Virtue isn't rigid moralism. It's choosing to act in a just, honest, courageous and balanced way, even when it would be easier to give in to selfishness, anger or easy comfort. The soul blossoms when you stay faithful to these principles under pressure, not when life is perfectly arranged. This means that happiness for the Stoic is not feeling good all the time, but acting well, even when you don't feel that good. Emotions rise and fall. One day you wake up excited, the next you feel heavy. Today you feel recognized, tomorrow you feel ignored. If your happiness is glued to these ups and downs, you become their hostage. The Stoic proposal is to build an inner axis, a way of living in which your actions are not dictated by every emotional gust of wind that passes. From there comes a second decisive point, the humility to recognize what lies outside our control. They insist on something that deep down we know but don't always accept. We do not control the world. We do not control other people. We do not control the future. We can influence, plan, try, but not command. Crises happen, people change, plans fall apart. If you bet your happiness on the fantasy of controlling all that, frustration is guaranteed. At the same time, the Stoics remind us there is a field in which our power is real and profound. We can control our mind, our choices, our attitude toward all of this. That's where the game turns around. The mind is the place where you choose your judgments, tame your desires, question your fears, and decide what meaning you will give to what happens. The fact itself may be harsh, but the interpretation you give it and the response you offer based on that interpretation are in your hands. That is where true freedom begins. So for the Stoics, true happiness is having a mind trained to respond well to whatever life brings, instead of being dragged around by impulses, fears, and desires. It's not the absence of pain, it's maturity in the face of pain. It's not the absence of fear, it's courage guided by reason. It's not having no desires at all, it's not letting desire take the wheel. From this foundation, everything else is born. If happiness depends on living with reason and virtue, on taking care of your own mind and attitude, then it's possible to turn this vision into practical principles, almost like inner laws, to guide the way you live. And that is exactly what I'm going to show you from now on. The laws of happiness, according to the Stoics, one by one. so you can understand how to apply this philosophy in your daily life and stop depending on luck or circumstances to feel at peace. If this makes sense to you, stay with me, because what comes next can completely change the way you see your... Law 1. Happiness is virtue, not pleasure. The first turning point in Stoic thinking is simple to say and hard to live. Pleasure is good, but it is not the center of life. They don't demonize pleasure. Eating something tasty, resting, laughing with friends, enjoying comfort, all of that is natural and in itself not a problem. The problem begins when pleasure stops being a welcome visitor and becomes the king of the house. When everything you do starts being guided by the question, what will make me feel good right now? For the Stoics, the center of life is virtue. They understand virtue as the capacity to act well, not only when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. And they divide this virtue into 4 major pillars. Wisdom is seeing reality as it is, without illusion, without deliberately deceiving yourself to avoid discomfort. Justice is treating people with respect, giving each what is due, being upright even when no one is watching. Courage is facing what is difficult without running away, without cowering in the face of pain, risk, or rejection. Temperance is moderation, not being a slave to desires and impulses, nor living in excess. Pleasure can accompany virtue, like a perfume accompanies a flower, but it is not the flower. When pleasure becomes the main objective, you live running after sensations. More food, more fun, more stimulus, more novelty. Life becomes a sequence of highs that never sustain themselves. When virtue is the king, you can still enjoy pleasure when it appears, but you don't depend on it to feel whole. You measure yourself by the kind of person you are becoming, not by the intensity of your next pleasant experience. The deep peace that the Stoics seek is not that momentary euphoria, but a tranquility of conscience that comes from knowing, I have tried to act with integrity. I wasn't perfect, but I was upright. This feeling is much more stable than the agitation of someone who lives chasing the next pleasure, terrified that it will end. Law 2. Distinguish what depends on you and what doesn't. The second law is a kind of border map. The Stoics say life changes when you learn, honestly, to separate what depends on you from what doesn't. It sounds obvious, but in daily life, we mix everything. What depends on you, your opinions, your choices, your desires, your impulses, your attention. You don't control the first thought that appears, but you can choose what to do with it. You don't control the first emotional reaction, but you can choose the next action. It also depends on you what kind of habits you cultivate, what kind of content you consume, the conversations you insist on having, the level of effort you put into what you consider important. What doesn't depend on you? A perfect body, absolutely guaranteed health, fame, money in the ultimate sense, the weather, other people's approval, other people's decisions, external events. You can influence some of these things, but you don't have full control over any of them. And the more you try to control the uncontrollable, the more frustration you accumulate. Unhappiness, for the Stoics, arises precisely when you invest too much energy on the part that is not yours. You wear yourself out trying to control other people's opinions, predict every detail of the future, guarantee that nothing will ever go off plan. Stoic happiness begins when you're able to say, at this point, I can act. At this point, I can only accept. And you redistribute your energy, stopping fighting against walls and beginning to work on what is truly possible. This law is not an invitation to passivity, on the contrary. It is an invitation to intelligent action. Instead of wasting hours brooding over what you cannot change, you ask yourself, what is in my hands today? Maybe it's studying, apologizing, changing a habit, correcting a mistake, taking care of your body in whatever way is possible, seeking help, improving how you speak, reviewing a plan. By focusing on that, you become more efficient and at the same time, lighter. Law 3. The root of unhappiness is in judgments, not facts. The Stoics hit one point over and over. It is not the facts themselves that torment us, but the interpretation we make of them. Between what happens and what we feel, there is always a bridge, our judgments. Losing a job is a fact. Difficult, uncomfortable, worrying, of course. But I'm a failure. I'll never achieve anything again. My life is over, are already judgments. They are sentences the mind adds on top of the event. Facts are neutral in the Stoic sense. The same situation can bring someone down or serve as a push for someone else, depending on the internal reading. This does not mean denying the real pain of things. A loss hurts, a betrayal wounds. A serious problem has impact. The Stoic point is, pain is inevitable, but suffering can be multiplied by the judgments we create. When you cling to the heaviest narratives possible, you make everything harder than it already is. Stoic discipline is learning to pause and ask, this happened. What am I going to think about it? What reading am I going to make? Instead of letting the mind automatically draw the most dramatic conclusions every time, you start examining your own interpretations. Is this a fact, or is it a story I'm telling? Is there another way to see the same situation? This training doesn't erase problems, but it keeps you from being crushed by exaggerated interpretations. Over time, your mind becomes more sober. You still feel sadness, fear, frustration, but you can see, okay, my judgment is making everything worse. I can adjust it. It's like taking off dark sunglasses on a cloudy day. The environment is still grey, but not as dark as it seemed. Law 4. Live according to your rational nature. When the Stoics talk about living according to nature, they are not telling you to follow your heart in the sentimental sense. They mean live according to what is most noble in our nature, which is reason. This does not mean killing feeling, but placing feeling under the guidance of clarity. Living according to rational nature is not acting like an animal guided only by pleasure and pain, reacting automatically to stimuli without reflection. Nor is it living like an emotional robot, pretending you don't feel anything. It is using the human capacity to reflect before acting. In daily life, this translates into simple, powerful questions. What is reasonable here? What is just? What is worthy of the person I want to be? It's not, what do I feel like doing right now? But what kind of choice will I not be ashamed of later? This small change in question already changes a lot. When you live under the command of impulses, you may have moments of intense pleasure, but they usually come accompanied by regrets. When you live aligned with your rational nature, thinking before acting, honoring what you consider right, you begin to experience a calmer, yet much more solid kind of satisfaction. Stoic happiness is not the frenzy of someone who follows every impulse, but the serenity of someone who knows that even amid conflicts and difficulties, they are trying to act in the best way they understand. It is the feeling of being at peace with yourself, even if the world around you is disorganized. Law 5. External goods are indifferent, important, but not essential. The Stoics call money, status, health, beauty, success, and praise indifference. That word can confuse. It doesn't mean they think all that is irrelevant or that you should despise any comfort. It simply means that for true happiness, these things are not essential. Is it better to have than not to have? Almost always, yes. Having money is preferable to being in need. Having health is preferable to being sick. Being respected is more pleasant than being humiliated. But none of this, however good it may be, is the ultimate source of Stoic happiness. Why? Because all of it is fragile and can be taken from you at any time, through an accident, a loss, a change of context, a crisis. If your dignity and your sense of worth are completely glued to these goods, any blow to them destroys your inner stability. The Stoics advocate another stance. Use external goods when you have them. Enjoy them in a reasonable way, but don't let them own your soul. Be able to manage them. Don't be managed by them. This is not contempt for the world. It is freedom in relation to it. You can take care of your health, work toward good financial conditions, seek recognition for your work. This all makes sense. But at the same time, you can say to yourself, if I lose this, I won't lose who I am. I may suffer, but I don't have to lose my integrity. This attitude reduces the anxiety of clinging to everything with your nails. When you understand that external goods are bonuses, not the core of your identity, you become lighter in dealing with gains and losses. Law 6. Love your fate, amor fati. One of the most beautiful expressions associated with Stoicism is amor fati, love of fate. It is not enough to tolerate what happens. The wise learn to cooperate with reality and, in a certain sense, to love it. This does not mean applauding injustice or rejoicing in other people's suffering. It means seeing in each event an opportunity to practice a virtue. When something happens, pleasant or painful, the Stoic asks, "What is this asking of me? What virtue can I exercise here?" A compliment can be training in humility. A criticism can be training in patience. A loss can be training in courage and detachment. A crisis can be training in creativity and resilience. Loving fate means no longer living as an enemy of your own story. Instead of spending your whole life saying, "This shouldn't have happened to me," you start saying, "It has already happened. What can I do with it?" You don't choose all the cards you receive, but you can choose how to play them. This posture makes Stoic happiness compatible with pain, losses, and limits. Life doesn't have to become perfect for you to flourish. It is precisely in the inevitable imperfections that you find ground to grow. What changes is not the world. It is the relationship you establish with it. Law 7. Use difficulties as training, not as a curse. The Stoic mindset is almost athletic. For an athlete, the weight in the gym is not an enemy. It's a tool for strengthening. For the Stoic, life's difficulties are something similar. They are not pleasant, but they can be used as training for the soul. An unjust situation can be seen as training in justice and patience. Instead of immediately becoming bitter, you ask, how can I defend what is right without losing my dignity? A huge fear becomes training in courage. Even afraid, what is the right step I can take? A significant loss becomes training in detachment and acceptance. What I can't get back, I can learn to release. This does not romanticize pain. It's not, I enjoy suffering. It's, since the pain came, I'm not going to waste it. Instead of getting stuck in, why did this happen to me? The Stoic asks, how can I respond to this in a virtuous way? That question changes the place you stand. From absolute victim, with no power at all, to agent who can still decide something, even if it's not much. Happiness here is feeling that even in the hardest part of your story, you are not just being beaten down by life, but using every blow as material to grow. Nothing is totally wasted if you can extract wisdom from each situation. Law 8. Live in the present. The Stoics also insist on the power of the present moment. They do not deny the past or despise the future, but they remind you that you can only act now. The past is no longer in your hands. You can learn from it, ask for forgiveness, forgive, but you cannot edit it. The future does not yet exist. You can prepare yourself, plan, imagine scenarios, but you cannot control it. Unhappiness usually lives in two excesses: exaggerated regret over what happened and exaggerated anxiety over what might happen. In both cases, your mind is absent from the only place where something concrete can be done, the present. The Stoic strives to bring attention back and ask, what does virtue ask of me today, in this moment? It might be talking to someone, fulfilling a simple duty, getting out of bed, studying, taking care of the body, taking a difficult step, staying silent when everything in you wants to retaliate. By focusing on this, life becomes less abstract and more manageable. Living in the present is not abandoning dreams or never planning, but it is stopping yourself from getting lost in fantasies to the point of forgetting the only real task, the next step. This simplicity greatly reduces anguish because it shifts the focus from everything I need to fix in my life to what I can do well right now. Law 9. Focus on intention, not the guarantee of results. No matter how prepared you are, results are never 100% under your control. You can study hard and still not pass an exam. You can work with dedication and still not get promoted. You can do everything right in a project, and even so, external factors can get in the way. The world is full of variables that are independent of your will. The Stoic recognizes this and shifts the criterion of success. Instead of measuring themselves only by results, they measure themselves by the quality of their intention and effort. The question becomes, acting with integrity, justice, care, and competence is in my hands. Did I do my best, honestly, with the resources I had? If the answer is yes, they can feel at peace, even if the result was not what they wanted. This does not mean slacking off and doing everything carelessly. On the contrary, it is an invitation to dedicate yourself fully to the process, because that is where your power lies. But at the same time, it's an antidote to exaggerated guilt and arrogance. When things go well, you know you did your part, but you also know there were factors beyond you. When they go badly, you don't automatically fall into self-destruction. You examine, correct what can be corrected, and move on. Those who base happiness only on results live on a permanent roller coaster. Euphoria when everything goes well, despair when something goes off script. Those who base it on well-oriented intentions and efforts build a more stable peace, the quiet conscience of doing the best they know how, in the context they're in. Law 10. Tame desires and fears. The ordinary mind is pulled by two powerful extremes, unbridled desires and excessive fears. On one side, the I want this, that, more. On the other, the I can't lose anything, I can't fail, I can't be rejected. When life is guided only by this pair, you become a hostage of what you want and what you fear. The Stoics say the soul becomes enslaved when it is governed by uncontrolled desires and fears. Taming this is not turning into stone, nor living without dreams or care. It is adjusting the volume, it is reducing the exaggeration of desires, noticing when what you want has stopped being healthy and reasonable and has become an obsession. It is reducing the exaggeration of fears, understanding that some risks are part of life and there will never be absolute guarantees in anything. They propose learning to desire what is healthy and possible, to desire to be more just, wiser, more courageous, more moderate, to desire to fulfill your role well, to desire the good of others, and at the same time to accept what cannot be avoided, finitude, some level of uncertainty, moments of loss. The less your happiness depends on having everything you want and never going through anything difficult, the more stable it will be. When desires and fears are tamed, you regain part of your self-governance because you no longer react automatically to every impulse to chase or run away. Instead of only feeling and obeying, you feel, observe, evaluate, and choose. Law 11. Remember that we are part of a whole. The Stoics have a cosmopolitan view. They see each human being as a citizen of the cosmos, part of a great rational community. This changes how you think about happiness. It is not only about my life in isolation, but about how your existence fits into the whole. Remembering that we are part of a whole means accepting that you are not a loose atom in the universe. Your actions impact other people. Your words can relieve or wound. Your choices can build or destroy environments. Your virtue necessarily includes some degree of care for the common good. It is very difficult to be genuinely happy while constantly harming others. Even if you gain something in the short term, sooner or later, your own conscience will collect the bill. Guilt, shame, resentment, loneliness, all of these tend to appear when you live as if only your will matters. The Stoic perspective of belonging acts as both brake and inspiration. As a brake, because it reminds you that not everything you feel like doing is compatible with living in community. As inspiration, because it shows that your actions can be part of something larger that goes beyond your immediate benefit. The feeling of contributing, even in a small way, to something that improves other people's lives is a powerful source of lasting satisfaction. Martorm. Law 12. Mentally prepare for losses. Premeditatio malorum. A famous exercise in Stoicism is the premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. The idea is, in a moderate and conscious way, to imagine that things can go wrong. It's not about feeding paranoia or living expecting the worst. It's about admitting that nothing is guaranteed. By considering that you might lose a material good, be criticized, fail, or become ill, you are not calling these things into your life. You are training your mind not to be completely caught off guard if something similar happens. It's like an emotional simulator. You rehearse internally. If this happens, what kind of posture do I want to have? How can I respond? This practice has 3 effects. First, it makes you value more what you have today. When you remember that you can lose it, the present gains a different weight. Second, it weakens the illusion of absolute stability. You stop building castles in the sand thinking they are made of stone. Third, if something really goes wrong, the shock is a bit smaller. You have already visited that scenario mentally and begun to think about how to go through it. Far from being pessimistic, this attitude is realistic and strengthening. Instead of living in a bubble of denial, you face life's possibilities head-on and prepare yourself. This makes the mind less fragile and more capable of recovering. Law 13. Self-discipline is freedom. For the Stoics, without discipline, there is no true freedom. At first glance, this seems contradictory. Many people associate freedom with doing whatever I want, whenever I want. It does, but if you don't control your tongue, don't control your impulses, don't control your habits, are you really free? Or are you ruled by your own vices? Self-discipline here is the ability to say no to what destroys you and yes to what builds you up, even when your immediate desire is the opposite. It is keeping commitments to what you rationally know is best for you and for others, even when it is uncomfortable. Getting up early to do something important, studying when it would be more pleasant to be distracted, holding back an aggressive reply, maintaining a healthy boundary. This discipline is not blind rigidity. It is a conscious choice to train yourself to be the kind of person you respect. We are all disciplined in something. Sometimes, without noticing, we are disciplined in maintaining bad habits. The Stoic consciously decides what he or she will be faithful to. Stoic happiness is feeling that you govern yourself, not perfectly, but progressively. Each small act of well-aimed discipline reinforces this sense of inner command. You may still face difficult external situations, but you are not entirely at the mercy of your own instincts. Uli Suri Law 14. Rational gratitude. The Stoics might not have used the word gratitude the way we do today, but the attitude is present in their philosophy, noticing and valuing what exists, instead of living by looking only at what is missing. They are not naive. They do not deny injustices, pain, inequalities. The point is that if you only see what you don't have, your view of life becomes distorted. Rational gratitude is the ability to see what is good in your life right now, without closing your eyes to what is difficult, but without ignoring the opportunities and support that already exist. It is remembering that nothing is guaranteed. A body that works, people who put up with you, a roof, some food, some degree of freedom. It is recognizing that however bad things are, a lot could be even worse. And even so, you still have some margin for action. This stance does not erase real problems, but it prevents you from falling into a completely dark view of life. When the mind gets used to recognizing only what is missing, any progress seems small. When it learns to see what is already there too, you gain emotional fuel to keep fighting and improving what can be improved. Stoic gratitude is not forcing yourself to find everything beautiful, but rather adjusting your focus so you see the whole picture, not just the shadows. Law 15. Awareness of death as counselor. The remembrance of death for the Stoics is not something morbid. It is a kind of silent counselor that puts things into perspective. When you remember that time is limited, that you are going to die, and that everyone around you is also finite, a lot of things change in size. Small quarrels lose importance. Silly vanities, like proving a point in a useless argument, collecting empty trophies, competing for attention, start to seem ridiculous in the face of finitude. You begin to ask yourself more often, am I using this day well? Is this attitude worth my lifetime? Instead of generating despair, this awareness can generate priority. You realize you can't embrace everything, that you must choose carefully where to invest your energy. Maybe that means taking better care of important relationships, investing in something that truly makes sense, having the courage to leave situations that are corroding your soul. Death here functions as a constant reminder. Don't waste your life on what doesn't matter. When you take that seriously, your decisions become more aligned with what you consider essential. And that coherence greatly increases the sense of meaning and consequently of happiness. Law 16. Don't repress emotions, educate them. There is a myth that a Stoic is someone cold, almost without feelings. In reality, the central proposal is not to kill emotions, but to educate them. Emotions are natural responses. They bring information. What the Stoics want to avoid is letting these responses govern everything. Fear doesn't disappear, but it can be reduced to a functional level instead of becoming paralyzing. Sadness doesn't vanish, but you don't need to drown in it to the point of believing nothing has value anymore. Anger doesn't cease to exist, but it doesn't need to explode in destruction. Educating emotions means learning to observe them without fully fusing with them. The Stoic mind trains a few steps, noticing what you are feeling, naming the feeling, asking where it comes from, assessing whether the reaction it is suggesting is fair or exaggerated. Instead of acting in the heat of the impulse, you create a small space between feeling and responding. That interval is where reason enters. Happiness here is not feeling. That would be more like numbness than fullness. Stoic happiness is not being enslaved by what you feel. It is being able to cry and still maintain a sense of direction. It is being able to feel anger and still choose not to retaliate unjustly. It is being able to feel fear and still take a step in the direction you believe is right. Law 17. Philosophize daily. Finally, for the Stoics, philosophy is not something you read occasionally in a book and forget. It is daily practice. It is a set of mental and moral exercises. At night, they suggest reviewing the day. Where was I wise? Where was I foolish? At what moment did I let myself be carried away by impulses? At what moment did I act with virtue? It's not to torture yourself, but to learn from your own experience. In the morning, prepare the mind. What kind of people might I meet today? What challenges might I face? How do I want to react when someone irritates me or when something goes wrong? During the day, remember the principles. Does this depend on me? Am I acting with virtue? What interpretation am I making of this situation? Stoic happiness is not a magical finish line where suddenly everything becomes easy. It is a path of gradual improvement. You become a little wiser, a little more just, a little more serene day after day. There are setbacks, of course, but now you have a direction. Bringing it all together, we can sum it up this way. True happiness for the Stoics is a state of soul that arises from a virtuous life, from self-governance, from lucid acceptance of reality, and from the conscious use of every situation as an opportunity to grow in wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation. It is not a life without pain. Pain will come, losses will happen, frustrations are inevitable. The difference is that from the Stoic perspective, neither pain nor pleasure rules you. They pass. What remains is the kind of person you are becoming. By learning to place virtue above pleasure, to focus on what depends on you, to review your judgments, to live according to your rational nature, to use difficulties as training, to accept and love fate, to discipline desires and fears, to remember that you are part of a whole, to practice gratitude, to remember death, to educate emotions, and to philosophize daily, you gradually build a more solid happiness, less vulnerable to life's ups and downs. The Stoic invitation is not to naive optimism, but to radical maturity. It is a call to take responsibility for your own mind and your own character. And it is precisely there, in that silent and constant work, that they say lies the source of an inner peace that no external change can completely destroy.